All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you all for joining us for our Module 6, conducting a syllabus equity audit. Today's session will follow a slightly different format for today. We're going to be briefly revisiting key concepts from Module 5, asset-based teaching, to ground our work. So Dr. Aisha Jackson, who you all know, will be conducting a 30-minute activity on community culture wealth. So I'll pass it on to her to get started.
Morning, everyone. I am actually going to start a timer because our main speaker is Dr. Morris, and I do not want to short her time. So I'm giving myself 30 minutes on the clock exactly, starting now. If you will all log into Canvas for me, we're going to revisit the activity that is now in Module 6 from Module 5. So if you go in to your Module 6, you'll see a Module 5 activity. I'm going to share my screen so that you can see what I'm referring to. The activity should look like this. And if you are able to pull it up, that will be helpful as I explain what we're going to do. Mapping students' cultural assets. You should have 6 guiding questions at the top. And then you should see this lovely flower that we're going to talk about. Give everybody a second to log in, find the Module 5 Mapping Students' Cultural Assets activity. Let me know if you have any issues finding it. Hearing none, I'm going to share my PowerPoint. It's not a PowerPoint. Okay, is everybody with me with the activity? Does everybody have it? Or do I need to give you a little bit more time to find it? If you can see the React button, give me a green check if you have the activity pulled up. Thumbs up, green check. Green check, thank you. Green check. Waiting for a couple of more so I know you're with me. Okay, can everyone see the asset-based teaching PowerPoint slide? So as Melissa said, we're just going to revisit some of the key concepts from Module 5 as a way of bridging what Dr. Morris will present for the syllabus audit. We felt like it was really important to ground this work in community cultural wealth so that when you're doing the syllabus audit, you're thinking through how to apply asset-based teaching in your courses and your work with students. Give me just a second. My mouse is slow moving over, so if there's a delay, that's why. So what is asset-based teaching? This is from your pre-reading from Module 5. There are 4 key things that the reading talks about. Asset-based teaching is an approach, and we can't overemphasize that the principles of CRRT really align with a mindset. It's the way that you think about teaching and learning as an exchange and how you approach your pedagogy in the classroom. So asset-based teaching helps us do 4 things. It helps us view students' cultural knowledge as strengths for learning. So that background knowledge, the ways that students learn, what they have learned coming into the classroom is foundational to have an asset-based perspective. From that view of understanding that students come with a wealth of knowledge that's rooted in their cultural ways of knowing and being, that helps us counter deficit orientations. So we don't focus on the things that students lack, the things they don't know, the things they can't do. Yes, some of that might be true, but an asset-based approach helps us think about what are we missing that we could be tapping into from the students' knowledge base that's rooted in where they come from, their backgrounds. When we apply an asset-based approach, it also makes learning more relevant to students' lives. So Claudia last time talked about the bird project and water project. These were problems of practice, essentially, that were rooted in the environments that students lived in. So when we think about our disciplines through students' lived experiences, what they have in their communities as problems of practice, and we apply our disciplinary knowledge, that learning becomes more relevant. And what the research shows us is that when the learning is more personal, it's more powerful. It's likely to increase that academic engagement and the positive academic outcomes that we're looking for. And then finally, what we're going to focus on today, asset-based teaching, is connected to two theories of education: funds of knowledge, which the pre-reading talked about in detail, and community cultural wealth, which I'm going to talk about and your activity is based on today. So Terry Yosso offers this idea of community cultural wealth. With community cultural wealth, there are 6 kinds of capital that Yosso talks about. These kinds of capital everyone has, but students from marginalized backgrounds often come into the classroom where these show up in particular ways. There's aspirational capital, linguistic, familial, social, navigational, and resistant. For the sake of time, I'm going to highlight aspirational and resistant. So with aspirational capital, it helps students really hone in on their why. Many of the people in this room talked about being first generation college graduates. You had some sort of a why that helped you persist as the first person in your family to get a college degree that meant something to you. For marginalized students, they're often coming in as they're first in the family to go to college. Their why might be to be a role model for other people in their family. Their why might be to get a degree that's going to help them impact their community. But when you can tap into, no matter how these students are performing, they have a reason to be here, then that aspirational capital becomes a strength that you can build on. Yes, this might be difficult, but I know you're here for a larger purpose. Let's connect to that purpose so that we can persist. Resistant capital, I also think, is important to discuss because as it's defined, it is the knowledge and skills fostered through activism and oppositional behavior that challenges inequity. And that notion of oppositional behavior can be negative if it's misunderstood. So when a student is challenging something that doesn't seem fair, that doesn't feel right, they could do it in lots of ways that aren't necessarily trying to oppose you or the discipline, but it's saying this situation is unfair, whether it's a grading policy or it's like water quality that we're talking about. If you are able to recognize that that student's opposition is actually a form of capital, you can tap into it. So if they're recognizing a problem of practice and they're saying this doesn't seem like it makes sense, ask them, what about that doesn't seem fair to you? And then you can take them tacitly through what aligns with the scientific method. What is this problem of practice? How do you come to understand it? What solution might you want to create a hypothesis about? How could you test that hypothesis? So that resistant capital, again, if tapped into and not seen as a negative, can become a way of personalizing and amplifying the learning for students. I want to pause here and ask if there are any questions about the definitions of these 6 kinds of capital. Looks like we're good to go forward. I'm going to slowly move my mouse. So here's what we're going to spend the bulk of our next 21 minutes doing. You're going to be put into breakout groups, approximately 3 or 4, and you're going to look at the activity that hopefully you all had a chance to pull up. The activity begins with some guiding questions that can help you think about how to fill the flower. Think about the students you teach or work closely with and what you know about them. Think about the petals you can easily fill and those you cannot. It is okay. We're only going to give you about 15 minutes. It's okay if you can't completely fill the flower. There are 3 discussion questions at the bottom of the activity. In your group, be prepared to discuss these 3 questions because when we come back, this is how we're going to do a whole group debrief. Questions about the directions for the activity? No? Okay, then Melissa will be opening breakout rooms and we'll see you in 15 minutes. All right, I cannot fully see everyone, but I think everyone is back. We have about 2 minutes total. So does any one person want to share your insights into what you gained from your group conversation or insights into any of these 3 questions? And because I can't see you all, you are welcome to just come off of mute and jump in the conversation.
Well, I will tell you in group 4, I did not contribute, but the people in there had awesome ideas about, I guess it was a geologist that was talking about one of their students was local to where there was a volcano. And if he would have known that when he was developing his course material, then he would have connected with that student with that particular volcano. So learning about, where your students are from and then using the knowledge that they bring with the geographical things in that area into your lectures. So I really thought that was a great idea that I heard in my group.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. One more person. Did anyone find that they could not comfortably fill out any of the petals? And if so, why not? That is time. I'm going to let that question linger because I promised not to overextend the time and cut off Dr. Morris. So again, hopefully in your reflection for this module and going forward as you think about the syllabus audit, you'll take some time to think about how you can come to know what strengths and assets your students are bringing into the classroom. And then it becomes the pedagogical responsibility to translate that learning and knowing into your course. And the syllabus audit will help us think through how that actually shows up and what the syllabus looks like. So I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Morris after I do a proper introduction of Dr. Morris, who will lead us through the syllabus audit activity. Dr. Melissa Morris is an associate professor in residence and undergraduate coordinator in the mechanical engineering department at UNLV. And Dr. Morris has recently been named the faculty director of the Teaching and Learning Commons. We're so excited about that. She's working with a team to develop the HSI Resource Hub, which is an NSF-funded project that has the goal of improving educational equity at Hispanic-serving institutions by creating a community of STEM scholars aimed at cultivating culturally responsive and relevant pedagogy. Dr. Morris has been recognized at college and university levels for her teaching. She was also selected as the ASEE Pacific Southwest Section Outstanding Teacher in 2023 and a Regents Teaching Award recipient in 2025. So we are very excited that Dr. Morris is joining us. I will stop talking and turn this over to you.
All right. Thank you for that great introduction. Much appreciated. So I'm excited to be here to talk to you all this morning. So we're going to talk about conducting a syllabus audit. And I think this is a timely topic as the fall semester is creeping up on us quicker than I'd like to admit. And so you may be able to incorporate some of the ideas that you take away from today. So the learning objectives of this session. First, we are going to help you learn how to identify language and policies in the syllabus that do not support an equitable learning environment, and then help you learn how to create a syllabus that employs language that's inclusive and validating of traditionally underserved students. So I'm going to go over a little review of some of the content, and we can have a little discussion of the pre-reading, and then we're going to jump into some activities where you really get to reflect and think about a syllabus that is going to be meaningful and useful for you and your classes. So like I said, we are going to have a brief lecture and discussion of the pre-reading. And then in Canvas, there should be a Module 6 activity. It's a Word document, so you can download it and type into it if you would like, or you can print and write on it if you're like me and old school. But there's a table there, and we're going to fill it out in 2 separate breakout sessions. And then we'll come all back together and discuss. So a syllabus is a key component to your class, and sometimes if you've been in academia for a long time, it's not something that you spend a lot of time on. You kind of take it for granted, but it really does set the expectations and tone for the semester. So it is a key important component of your class. And now with the advent of everyone using kind of web campus and posting things, students may see the syllabus if you have it available to them before they even come to the class and meet you. So it's not uncommon for your students to go through, read through the syllabus, see how bad they think the class is going to be or challenging, or policies that they may be concerned with before they even come and like see the smile on your face and the energy you have to teach them. So it's important to make sure that you have like a positive and inclusive tone in your syllabus, because students can come into the class already with kind of a mindset about what the class is going to be like from just what they saw on a piece of paper or on their screen. And so you want to make sure that the syllabus uses language that's validating and inclusive. So these are some of the tenets I think you've already discussed, and really represent some cultural strengths of your traditionally underserved students. We want to make sure you're laying the foundation for an equitable learning environment where everyone's going to be able to achieve success in your course. We're going to go over best practices for how you can do that, how you can create the equitable syllabus. We're going to go over topics like grading policies, different types of assessments, your expectations of the students, maybe your students' expectation of you, inclusive language, and the culturally relevant and responsive curriculum. So this is not really part of the CRRT stuff, but while you're looking at your syllabus, thought it would be a good time to remind you of the UNLV minimum syllabus requirements. So I'm not going to go through all of this, but it is in the PowerPoint for you. So while you're taking a deep dive into your syllabus, you do want to make sure it has all the minimum requirements, like your information, your office location, office hours, outcomes for the class, due dates, and those types of things. And there's also the web link and QR code the university provides with all of the university policies. So we hear the words or the letters DEI frequently, and they may have different connotations, sometimes positive or negative, depending on current climate or whoever you're discussing it with. So I think it's kind of key at this point in our discussion just to give some general definitions. They can be defined in very different ways, but this is kind of how I think they relate to academia based on a lot of literature that I've reviewed. So we talk about diversity. It's a complex construct, and we have to realize our students have a variety of different identities, and a lot of those identities may intersect. But we think of race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, disability status, maybe even like age. I notice in my classes here, I have lots of students of varying kind of times in their lives. Equity is we want to focus on removing barriers and providing opportunities, specifically for historically underserved and underrepresented populations, so they have equal access to participate in the educational programs and have the skills they need to close the gap into achieve and complete their degrees and courses. And then when we're using the term inclusion in academia, that's the active, intentional, and ongoing engagement with diversity in all aspects of academia. And we want to make sure we're increasing like the awareness, the content knowledge, and the empathetic understanding of the complex ways individuals interact within the institution, whether there is with each other, with the content, with the policies, with the instructors. Are we doing good? Questions? Okay, you could always jump in and just cut me off. I'm completely like laid back, so feel free. And I know sometimes I also talk fast, so feel free to like say, Melissa, pump the brakes. My students know that totally allowed to interrupt and say, slow down. So the bare minimum that you may be doing currently on your syllabus is including the UNLV's optional diversity statement. So it's available on UNLV's website, and I've copied and pasted it here for you. But a lot of institutions will have a standard diversity statement that is optional, or some institutions require it. But in addition to that standard statement, you may want to consider emphasizing your personal respect for diversity and expectations of classroom behavior. The students are probably used to seeing this same diversity statement on syllabi, and they may not think that it's meaningful to the specific instructor or course, and it's just like another university policy. But if you preface it with your own personal experiences and respect for diversity, and maybe even share some things about yourself and your background and how you expect your classroom to be a place where everyone is respected and their views are heard and people have equal chances and time to share, that really goes a long way to setting the tone for the semester. So definitely include UNLV's diversity statement, but consider prefacing it or including some additional statements on how diversity is important to you personally, to the course, to the material, and to how you expect your students to behave while they're in your course. So we talked a little bit, or you read a little bit about intersectionality in some of the pre-readings. And one of the pre-readings shared a statement that they said faculty were welcome to adopt for use on their syllabi. And I think it's important to acknowledge that there is intersectionality. And we want to make sure that our students aren't recreating like standard systematic oppression that happens out in the real world in our classroom. So I really liked this statement that they shared and suggested that faculty could either use or adapt. So consider adding something like this to your syllabus, saying that you're acknowledging that we're all individuals and we all have come from different backgrounds, different socioeconomic, sociocultural identities that shape our worldview through the lens of privilege and oppression. So I like share with my students because students, they come in and they see you in a position where you're successful and you're educated, and they may think, you know, everything was always easy for you and that type of thing. And I come from a place of privilege where my dad was a college professor, so I went to work with him, and like I just kind of grew up in the engineering college, so it was easy for me, right? And so I acknowledge that. But I also share that I'm the first person in my mom's side of the school, my mom's side of my family, to go to college. Like most of the people on my mom's side of the family didn't finish high school. And my mom actually came to college with me because she got married when she was 17 and worked. So my dad went to school. And so my mom and I went to college together at the same time. And so it was really interesting to see, like, she had not been in school for a long time. She obviously hadn't been in college. There's nobody else in her family that had done that. And so I could see she was like, what are all these policies with the syllabus? What does this mean? And it was very, very stressful for her. And so I share that with my students because I like them to know, you know, I'm aware that there are challenges, and then they get to know myself a little bit. And so then, you know, I encourage them to share with me, like in my office hours, personal things about their background. But also, you know, you want to make sure that you're letting them know that there's a safe learning environment for all of us. And ask your students to join in this commitment with you. Like you're going to model this behavior and you expect them to also foster respect for each other and build community. So I really did like that statement, and I'm including something similar in my syllabus for this fall. So in your course description, sometimes you're stuck with what was in the course catalog, and sometimes that was made many years prior. You may not have contributed to it even if you're given a course that was already in the catalog. So definitely include the standard catalog description, but include adding an additional course description. If the catalog description doesn't reference diversity, equity, or inclusion, you can add a supplement course description to your syllabus, specific to the way that you're going to teach the course and infuse concepts of DEI into the topics. That makes it kind of more evident to the student that this is important, and it's not like a random assignment here or there that's just been added on. So same thing if you're stuck with your learning objectives, many of us are because they're used for accreditation and assessment, you can't really change them. You can always add some additional learning objectives that relate to the DEI topics. Or if you're developing a new course, have the idea of diversity, equity, and inclusion in your mind as you're thinking of your learning objectives. We want to make sure that not only the learning objectives, but the course materials communicates to students that diversity is important. So you want to incorporate these ideas throughout your course. Again, don't just be like, today we're going to address diversity. Here's our diversity activity, because that kind of silos it and shows students, okay, someone told me I should do this or I have to do this, and not that it is important and essential to the concept. So I always try to not even call out to my students, this is a diversity focused reading or whatever. But still say like, this is a reading from somebody from this background and they contributed this great thing. And make sure it's throughout the course. And make sure the readings and any content, or if you have any supplemental materials, they represent diverse perspectives and people from different identities, and give the students an opportunity to apply knowledge from their own communities and cultures. We always want to acknowledge and also support marginalized groups. So again, incorporate material that's from marginalized scholars in the field, and maybe explain why there are not very broad or in-depth resources from certain marginalized groups in the field, and say, you know, we're working to change that. If the instructor feels comfortable, like I said, share your own experiences. You know, as a girl in engineering, like it was very different when I went to school. I always tell them there was one other girl in my graduating class, and I understand how it can be challenging when you're a minority gender in certain situations. And also, what I found is a lot of syllabi will have, you know, traditional Christian holidays, and that's what, you know, the UNLV calendar has on it as well. But make sure you have a comment on your syllabi about you communicate to them your commitment to respect other holidays that are traditionally honored by different cultures. So I always tell students, you know, I don't know what all of you observe, but certainly let me know if there's something coming up and there's a reason you can't be in class, and respect that. This is one thing I've also added to my syllabus after I went through a similar training, is not only the office hours, but how they can be used, and welcome students to your office. Because putting the hours there, that's like, yes, I'm available, I'll be in my office. But for some reason, students seem to think that it's still like an imposition to come to your office and talk to you during that time. Like they're going to interrupt you, or maybe it's scary. And so I have like a little statement on my syllabus that says, you know, this is the time where I'm excited to meet you, get to know you, and see how I can help you. You are welcome to come to my office anytime. I may not be there, but these are the hours I'm definitely going to be there. Please come and at least just drop by and take a piece of candy. I have a big bowl of candy in my office. And I think also making your office kind of like homey and approachable is helpful. Like I have pictures of my dogs. I have a bunch of Hello Kitty stuff. It might look like a 14-year-old girl works there, but my students come in and they laugh at it, and they'll bring me little Hello Kitty stuff at the end of the semester. And sometimes I have to be like, okay, you've been in here for 2 hours. Like we need to move on. Like, but definitely make it a place that is welcoming, and make it clear to them you want them to come, because for some reason students think that they're a bother, even though like we're here because we want to help them. And then family-friendly policies. This was something that was kind of new to me when I came to UNLV. I used to teach at a different R1 institution where it was a very traditional population, and we didn't have a lot of students with families, either children of their own or living with their parents. So when I came here, I learned very quickly that we have a very large student population that is either has children of their own they're responsible to take care of, or they help care for their younger siblings or their parents. And so I think we need to be respectful of that and make sure we balance their family commitments and educational commitments. The data in the pre-reading said that the majority of student parents are commonly single female parents. And so by removing the barriers for those student parents, it makes the education system more equitable for everyone, particularly women. And consider allowing your students, you know, on occasion to bring their child to your office hours, to class if they can behave, and include language that normalizes things like breastfeeding during class or office hours, or if they need to step out of class to pump or something, whatever. Just make sure that if you normalize that, you know, they have a life and responsibilities outside the class, and you understand that, and you are happy to work with them. So consider attendance policies that are not so rigid that are going to penalize students who have to miss class if they have a sick child or have to take a parent to a doctor's appointment or those type of things. And then course assignments and activities. You want to review your assignments and make sure there's some culturally relevant curriculum in there. Make sure the readings represent diverse perspectives. Make sure there's active learning into the course. That'll allow students to work together, engage with course material and each other. And that also allows you to shift the dynamic where the teacher doesn't hold all the knowledge, that you value the knowledge the students have. And it lets them connect the material with things in their lives. In participation in some courses contributes to the overall grade. You just want to be very careful that you define what is expected of students to participate, and make sure that you realize that sometimes students don't participate not because they don't have something valuable to say or the knowledge to share, but they may be concerned about stereotype threat, that essentially if they do speak up, they may be kind of confirming a negative stereotype with one of their identities. And that does make people who are in minority populations less likely to share. So certainly make a safe space and understand if some people are not as comfortable as others participating. Assessments have a mix of low risk assessments in addition to high risk assessments. That means assessments that allow students to gain feedback and check their knowledge without being extremely detrimental to their grade. So it's a good idea to have a course that doesn't have only exams as the only way the student gets their grade. Some minority students value cooperation and emotional engagement and time with the material. So incorporating group-based assignments and group-based graded assignments into a course may benefit students from different cultures. Also consider providing graded assignments. I like to use discussion boards and assign a grade to them that allows the students to connect material with something that's important to them. And then provide students with an opportunity to maybe resubmit assignments. And not every assignment, but you can build a mechanism if it's a writing assignment that they can submit a draft and get feedback and revise before they submit their final. I've done before, hey, if you think you have the homework done early and you want to send it to me, I'll give you feedback and you can revise it and submit it again before the due date for your actual grade. I also do in my class, my final is cumulative in my thermodynamics class. So if you do better on the final than your worst test, I'll drop your worst test and replace it with the final. Because ultimately, as long as the students have mastered the material by the end of the semester, they've met the course objectives. And that aligns with Carol Dweck's growth mindset, which means people have the capacity and the talents to be improved over time. So people may not grasp things in the same timeline, but everyone is able to grow and learn and grasp the topics. Are we still doing good? All right. And then the inclusive and deliberate language. It's easy when you're telling your students, you need to turn your homework in on time, and you need to do this, and you need to do that. But it's really more powerful if you say we, because they're going to see then your relationship as a team in achieving the goals in the course. So you may want to say, okay, we are going to meet on, Tuesdays and Thursdays at this time or whatever, or we're going to read this chapter this week, or we're going to have a quiz on Tuesday or whatever. It just makes it a more welcoming and supportive environment. You can also normalize struggles. So when students do have a topic, they're not alone. I do on the first day, tell people, engineering's hard, you're going to struggle. It may not be this class or that class, but everyone hits the class, and it doesn't mean you're not smart enough or whatever. If someone comes to my office, I have my physics book from my sophomore year. I'm you can see the tears in this book. I struggle, but you can overcome it, right? And so just normalize struggling, refer them to resources. Don't say things like, this class is hard, you're going to struggle. But say different topics can be challenging for different people, and here are the resources to make sure everyone succeeds. Definitely include academic integrity and disability services that explain their importance and purpose. So we have the standard UNLV policies for academic integrity, But I had a little preface on mine that says, I don't assume that any of you are going to commit academic dishonesty. However, this is the university policy, because sometimes if you just put policies that seem like very harsh, students may assume that like, oh, they think I'm going to cheat. So I like to say, like, I know you're all going to do your own work, but these are just the policies in case, some incidents come up. Definitely clearly state your expectations from the students. They may not know what's expected, even like your name. I know for some reason, like students are really nervous, like what to call you. Like say, like on the first day or on your syllabus, I like to be called Melissa or Dr. Morris or whatever is your preference. And then again, throughout your syllabus, go with that growth mindset. That communicates to your students that you believe they're capable of learning, even if they've initially struggled with the course material. All right. So that was a lot of me talking, but that was kind of a summary of the information in the toolkit section and also the article that y'all read. Y'all seem to be a pretty quiet group, but would anyone like to share what was new to you from either the pre-reading or, this brief PowerPoint that I just went through? Was anything new to you?
Yeah, I guess I could share. I
Thank
think
you.
I think what you're doing here is interesting because you're making it less formal, might be a word to call it that. And we were talking in our little breakout group, students come into academics and some students they don't, it's a foreign land to them. And so our formality is what we're all used to. We've been in academia for me for a long time. It's my language, but it's not their language. And so trying to look at the syllabus, which is their introduction to the class, to soften it essentially, make it more inclusive, but using words, and it is just simple words like putting we in there. I hadn't thought about putting we in there. Of course, we we assume that, but they don't necessarily assume that, and so making it and making it look like you're more approachable, which we are. That's why we're all probably in this course here. We want to be approachable, but that's not maybe how they perceive us. And so we really have to think about all of these course materials from their perspective and how are they seeing it. And that's a struggle actually for me. What are they like when they're 18 or 20 years old nowadays, and how are they approaching the course? So yeah, it's interesting to think about it like that.
Thank you for sharing. And I think that's another good point. Like they're very different than when we went to school. And so even like when we went to school, what was confusing to us, it may be something completely different that's confusing to them or that they're unaware of. Would anyone else like to share anything that was new to them? Okay. Well, just briefly, because we're going to go into the, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry to cut you off.
Can I actually ask a question related to that? Also, this making it more informal. So when I'm in faculty meetings, for example, like the senior faculty are often worried that we get sued about something. So with the syllabus, I think it would be probably the same concern. Like if I make everything informal and I talk about grades, then in the end, students can just go some legal routes to change stuff.
Well,
so is there any concern there, or do we have to not
I think
consider
that's
that in writing
I think
syllabus?
that's a valid concern. I think you just have to be careful, right? You still have to have all the meat in your syllabus. You still have to have the grading policy. You still have to have the due date. You still have to have the university policies and all of that. But you're just kind of softening the tone. We're not suggesting that you lower the bar or anything like that. We just want to ensure that everyone feels that they're able to achieve, that they're welcome, that you design the course in such a way that students who may not catch on immediately still have a chance to be successful, that they have a chance to hear people like them from their cultures and applications be heard. So you don't have to, we're not asking you to change the rigor or the grading kind of structure necessarily. So all that important stuff still is in there. We're kind of just framing it in a more inclusive manner, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Yeah, but that's a good question. Because a lot of times people will mistakenly think DEI is lowering the bar, where we're really just trying to raise everyone up to the same bar, right? So we're not asking you to reduce the rigor. Thank you for that. And there's one somebody shared in the chat. What was new to them was inclusive language in the policies. So they're always told to copy and paste them and keep them all on the same page. This is a great idea. Make it not only important for them to know, but also feel they're not preemptively judged. Yeah, same thing for years and years and years. Like my 14 years of teaching, I've always just like copy and pasted those policies. But I went to like the STEMX training last year, and they're like, well, if you can't change the policies, you can put a preface to them saying like, these are the policies, but you know, I'm sharing these because they're important policies, but I'm not sharing these because I think you're going to violate them, that type of thing. All right, so just very briefly before we go into breakout rooms, because we're going to discuss more of that. Oh, excellent point, Dr. Recon. She said a lot of times the practices that make for inclusive syllabi are actually protecting you from litigation, like putting in rubrics to ensure grading's fair and not subjective. All right, so just very briefly, because we'll discuss more of this after the breakout room. Did anything immediately come to mind with you? I think Donald said just switch an I to we or you to we is easy and change. Did anything else in your current syllabus immediately come to mind as something that you could maybe change a little bit?
So I'll actually answer both questions. Something that you said that I've never really thought of with the syllabus is it's a first chance to like build trust. Like I always view a syllabus as a contract. Like this is what is expected of you, this is what is expected of me, and it's kind of dry. Like it is contract driven, and I'm starting to see how that can come across as a bit aggressive. So like softening the language and that it is something that I am going to have to be working on. And I guess that brings me into the second one, you know, anything in my current syllabus that came to mind. I'm just thinking the most recent thing I put in is my AI comments, and it may come off a bit aggressive.
No, and I'm kind of, so if you read my professors, it says I'm kind of militant about cheating. Like, great teacher, but she's militant about cheating. Like, well, thank you, that's a compliment. But I think I was in new chair training yesterday. Thankfully, I'm not a chair, I was just presenting. But the presentation before me was talking a little bit about AI, and they recommended, in addition to like strict AI rules, making sure that you communicate that AI is a great tool, but it's not a substitution for learning, right? Because you're going to go out and get a job, and if AI could just do it, then they wouldn't pay you to do the job, right? So I think explaining some of the background of why we have strict AI rules, in addition to what happens if you use AI, maybe make it less kind of harsh, because like frame it as it's in the student's best interest. Like you want them to be successful, and that's why you have this policy. So thank you for sharing. And so did anyone, like, I'm assuming like you all did the pre-reading, I'm sure you're excellent students. Like when you were doing the pre-reading, what was your biggest takeaway? Maybe one person share and then we'll go into the activity.
I can share.
Thank you, Thomas.
I come from a military background, so attendance and punctuality is something that I struggle with having other people do. But you know, I have 4 kids also, so I understand the time management that's needed and stuff like that. And so I think just being more open and not being so rigid on like they can't take it again or it's 50% off. Maybe first 2 times, we can do a remake with no penalty, and then going forward there might be a small penalty, or at least understand what the problem with the attendance is with the student individually rather than just assuming.
Or like people will like drop the lowest quiz or something like that, so you have 1 mulligan whether you had a bad day or whatever. Great, thank you. All right, so now we're going to do part 1 of the activity. I think we're still good to spend 20 minutes on this part. So there should be in your Canvas module a Module 6 activity called Auditing Your Syllabus. And it should be in a version you can download and edit. I have the PDF version here. Basically, the activity is for you to fill out this table. So we're only doing this middle column right now. We're looking at your current syllabus, and then going through these different kind of self-assessment questions. Like, look at the tone. Are students feeling welcoming and welcomed and supportive? Does it make assumptions about their prior college knowledge? Not necessarily like prerequisite wise, but just in general. Course policies, do they align with the growth mindset? Are there any policies that may negatively impact marginalized students? What about the content? Is there CRRT or place-based material? Are there opportunities for students to see people like themselves in the material? Look at the activities. Is there active learning? Is there group work? Can they connect the topics to their own personal experiences? Resources. One of the other things that I try to do is not just put all the resources like tutoring, active success center, whatever, but give a little bit more information about what they can do for you or how they could use them. Assessments, but are you providing like a variety of ways for students to demonstrate their mastery, or is it all just like multiple choice tests? Do your assessments give the students an opportunity to provide a demonstration of growth throughout the semester? And are there several opportunities for students to provide feedback and then learn from their feedback? So we're just doing that first part, and then we'll come back and discuss briefly, and then we'll move on to doing step 3 and completing the second problem. So Melissa, could you please put us in breakout rooms for 20 minutes for the first part? Does anyone have any questions before you get teleported into breakout rooms? So take one of your current syllabi or a syllabi for a course that you're planning to teach in the future and do a little self-assessment. And no judgment, because when I looked at my syllabus, I was like, oh, I never even thought how mean I'd come across. But so please work on it, and you can discuss it amongst yourselves in your breakout rooms. And I'll hop around and see if you have any questions. Hello, everyone. Everyone's popping back in. All right. So hopefully you had productive breakout rooms. I know the ones I hopped around in, people were discussing great ideas. So we'll just take a few minutes and share kind of what you noted. So this portion is to discuss what you saw in your syllabus that may not be equitable or could maybe be improved by changing the language, not necessarily how you would improve it. That's what kind of the next breakout session's about. So would anyone like to share something that they saw that they think would be an area to work on in their syllabi? It could be any of these: language, tone, course policies, content, assessment.
Yeah, I could
I
just,
can,
I think my syllabus is very formal in third person and very contracty. And now looking at it from just having this discussion, I went, oh yeah, that is pretty formal. So I think we were discussing how maybe just add a sentence in the beginning of the formal part and keep the formal because of the legalese, contract aspects of it, make sure all that's there, but bring in a little bit of language, which I tend to do in the classroom. I don't tend to put it in the syllabus, but maybe putting in the syllabus would be good.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's kind of when I first did one of these trainings, I say all this stuff, but it's not in like the syllabus. And then I realized like sometimes people don't always listen when you talk. So having it like in both places is good. Thomas, did you unmute?
yes, I was just going to say that at least for my syllabus that I don't have any activities that would promote like group work or diverse backgrounds. So I think that could have some work on it.
All right. Anybody else? Thank you for sharing. Would anyone else like to share?
I never thought about it, but I like the question, does the language of your syllabus make assumptions about the students' college knowledge? And the rubric the syllabus I'm working on is for a senior level course. So it's like it does. But then I was thinking, I'm like, but I use the same language for my first year seminar, yeah. So I need to pay attention to that in all of them and make sure, especially for those freshmen, like I can list my office hours, but if they don't know how to actually use them, then what's the point?
Right. No, I did the same thing. I teach a first year seminar and I've taught senior design, and I was using like the same language and making the same assumptions. Yeah, definitely eye-opening. I'm like, oh, awesome. Thank you for sharing that. All right, one last chance to share before you get teleported back to breakout room. Anybody? Okay, for this next part, we are going to fill out the third column in the table. It is asking you on what ways that you could revise your syllabus to be more welcoming and accessible to students. How could you better align it with diverse student needs? How can you make the content more representative of the students you teach? And how could activities be revised to facilitate more interaction between students or encourage students to connect those topics in the course with their lived experiences? The academic resources, how can you encourage the use of them or share them differently? And the assessment practices, how could you revise the assessments or the grading policies? So I think we're still good to do this for 20 minutes, and then we'll have a final 10-minute share and close out, and I'll be respectful of your time and we'll actually end on time. So Melissa, would you mind sending them to break? Oh, she's on top of it. All right, so we will morph you back here in 20 minutes and I'll pop around and see how you're doing. Sounds like you have some great ideas to work on. All right. All right, it looks like everyone's back. I was super impressed from the breakout rooms I hopped into and eavesdropped on your conversations. I heard some great ideas. So I should probably put this in slideshow mode here, maybe. And then I gotta flip this up. So we're just gonna spend the last, 10 minutes or so discussing kind of what different things, strategies and changes we're gonna make to our syllabi to try to achieve a more equitable, inclusive syllabus. So again, the topics that we looked into were language and tone, course policies, content, activities, academic resources, assessment, also like grading policies, all the different things that we discussed. Would anybody like to share something that they plan to change in their syllabus? And maybe the reasoning behind it?
I think a small and easy thing I'm planning to change is the office hours, an explanation that students should come. And I'm also planning to make it part of a homework to encourage them to come, because that's typically otherwise an hour where I just sit in my office and no one comes by.
I think, yeah. Was that in the pre-reading a suggestion? I think I read that someplace. They make
Yeah.
it a homework assignment. Yeah. Yeah, great. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing and being willing to try that.
Yeah, I like that, just to emphasize that. I tell my students, come to my office hours. I'm lonely. Nobody comes to my office hours. But that doesn't work. I'm still there by myself mostly. In some of the classes I have 80 students and they just don't. But I think doing something like that, you have to come by for at least 5 minutes, and more than one of you could come. So at least they find your office door, find you there. Maybe that does break down the barrier. Then maybe it'll be interesting to see if they'll be more likely to come outside the little assignment.
Yeah, I like that idea. And honestly, as trivial as it sounds, having a bowl of candy, I cannot tell you what a difference that makes. I do not want to look at my credit card how much money I spend on candy. But just having it there, people will just come by and be like, "Oh, I just need a piece of candy." And I'll be like, "Oh, how are your courses going?" kind of thing. And then I know all their favorites. Like I know my Swedish Fish Girl, my Almond Joy guy, like I got them all in my drawers if I don't have them in the bowl. So like it just is, for some reason, I guess community eating food. I don't know, but that's kind of been my secret to get them to keep. It's kind of like a stray cat that you feed. They'll keep coming back.
Yeah, that's psychology. You're giving them a reward.
Yeah. Uh-huh. It's like when you potty train your kid with M&Ms.
Yeah, so you're manipulating them. I know that.
How do you get some of them to leave though? I've had students from like previous semesters, they'll just come in and sit and like talk about their dating life. And I'm just like, I have so much work. Go away. And they sit there for like 2 hours. And I'm like,
So that
go.
I have not mastered that. So I have students that sit in my office for hours and hours. If I really do have something I need to get done, I'll say, thank you so much for stopping by. It was really great to catch up with you. Unfortunately, I have to get this done by like 2 p.m. or whatever. And, like kind of
Here's
thing. Yeah. Yeah. I get made fun of by my colleagues all the time. They're like, do you want one of those deli number things? Because it's like your office is overflowing into the hallway. There's like always people. And I'm like, I'd rather have it this way than them have no one to come to. But yeah, I think you just have to be like, thank you for coming. I really appreciate, you sharing this with me. And I just have responsibilities I have to do. Kind of thing. But yeah, I struggle with that too.
I'll
Yeah.
answer some of these questions too.
Yeah.
So I think what I was talking with my group with is that I want to start the syllabus with like a welcoming statement instead of right now, if I look at it, it just starts like instructor and then office hours. Like it dives right into it. So maybe starting off with something that's like sincere, it communicates my commitment to them, just one or two sentences of like, I'm so glad you're in this class. I think we can we'll do a lot together. I think I can simplify some of my language. Several people have talked about this, of it's very contracty, and it needs to stay that way because it is a contract. But I can soften the language. I can start using, the we's and that, because right now, it's the students will do that. So it's a very institutional, I guess is a good way to say it. I want to add some more course description, a second paragraph, that's beyond what's already listed. Yeah, I think that's a start. There's some other things that I have ideas of changing, but I don't want to take everybody's time. But those are sort of where I'm going to start.
Those are all great ideas. And your syllabus can evolve from semester to semester. You can, do some little things this semester and see how they go and how it affects your interaction with the students and revise them and add some additional things. That's great. Does anybody else want to share anything? Okay.
I just think that in my own case, I think that I realized that I need to update all of my syllabi. I think I've done too much copy and pasting, and I think that I need obviously different courses have completely just different students, and so I think I really need to be much more sensitive to the type of course I'm teaching. What is the level of the student? Are they, introductory, undergraduate? Are they more advanced? Are they graduate students even? So I think that just recognizing that each different course, the syllabi should be written with different language, I think is important.
I think that's a great point, Michael. That came up in one of the breakout rooms I was in, that we realized that between first year seminar and senior course, it's the same language. And clearly freshmen probably don't have the same just general college knowledge that seniors have. So that's a great point.
And to be fair, UNLV, we would always get this, like this is going to be, you must include this language in your syllabi. And so, it was just kind of a copy and paste thing. And I realize now I should have modified a little bit of that here and there just to be a little more in tune with the different, whatever students you have in whatever particular course.
Awesome. All right, so we have time for maybe one more share. If anyone wants to. If not, that's okay. That was a lot of great ideas. I'm super excited for y'all to make these changes, and I even got some ideas from the breakout rooms that I was observing. And so there's references. I think the PowerPoint is in your Canvas. So there's references here. Some of this was the pre-reading, and then some of this was additional articles that I pulled things from. And then there's also additional resources. If you want to dive a little deeper, here are some more articles and websites that may be of help to you, this inclusive syllabus project from Purdue is pretty helpful. So I thank you all for caring enough about the students to join this cohort and listening to me today. And this is my email. Feel free to email me anytime. And shameless plug for the Teaching and Learning Commons. We're going to be putting some really interesting AI focus. We're going to have some more CRRT stuff. And just we're working on our programming for the fall and spring. So keep your eye out on that Sunday newsletter. And I hope to see y'all at some of our professional development events put on by the TLC and also the HSI Hub team.
Thank you, Dr. Morris. If you all will join me in thanking Dr. Morris for a fabulous presentation. We look forward to seeing Dr. Morris, Dr. Cohen, and the work that will come out of the TLC in the fall. As a reminder, we want you to go to Module 6 and do the reflection questions as you're able across the next week. We do continue to read them and incorporate your feedback as you're giving it to us. Next week will be our final module with Dr. Vonkaluk, who will talk about active learning. And if you have time, continue to work on your syllabus audit because that is the final deliverable for the summer and we are almost done. We'll hang out for a few more minutes if people have questions, comments, concerns. Otherwise, we will see you next week. Thank you, everyone.
That's a quick question about the final project. So what are the deliverables? Like, are we track changing our syllabi to show how it's evolved, or are we just giving you a final version of it? Like what's expected for the deliverables?
Whichever approach works for you. So track changes, if that's useful for you, we'd love to see it. If not, just that final where you're reflecting on the changes that you've made and why you've made those changes, how this experience informed some of the new decisions that you plan to make.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for the question. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'll see you all next week.